Welcome back to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Glenn Caruso, head football coach at the University of St. Thomas, and so happy you tuned in. My dad was the single greatest man I ever met. He used to tell me, Glenn, I'm not going to tell you how to be a man. I'm going to be a man. I'm going to let you watch me, and you're welcome. That always struck me very deeply. My dad never intended to try and make my path easy or smooth or devoid of any hurdles. He understood that very strain and struggle was part of the journey that's going to make every one of us into the person that we're intended to be. I would encourage everybody to think when they're leading people that our job is to prepare the child for the path and not the path for the child. And remember, if we're doing it right, we're coaching football for life.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Coach Mel Tucker. Coach Tucker just finished his first year as the head coach at University of Colorado. Greetings, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Ty, thanks for having me.
Now, Coach, we go way back. You were a graduate assistant at Michigan State. Of course, I was a player. And
a great player.
I don't know how great I was as a walk-on, but I know I was great at getting thrown out of practice. Back when you used to get mad at me, and I was probably a problem kid from Los Angeles, voicing right back at the coaches, getting thrown out of practice a couple, 2 or 3 times. But I guess all that was a lesson I learned.
Yeah, right? I don't actually remember it throwing you out, but yeah, it's all great experiences we had.
It's all part of it, right?
That's
well,
right.
I was very happy to see you be named the head coach at University of Colorado. I've had Rick George here on the podcast, and he talks about the standards and expectations at Colorado, and he was there when they were winning in the past, and he's been at different levels of athletics and sports to see what success is and try to define success. So I think that's very important. Now, for you coming into the position, there are a few key things from where you've been, who you've learned under Nick Sabans and the other coaches you work for in terms of what it takes to be a successful head coach. Talk to me about those things.
You talked about Rick George, and he's a great athletic director at Colorado. He gave me an opportunity, and he knows what it's supposed to look like. He was a recruiting coordinator at Colorado in the heyday when they won a national championship, and I think Rick recognized that I had a championship pedigree because of Barry Alvarez, Jim Tressel, Nick Saban, and guys that I've been around. And so it's just important to be able to articulate the message, the culture that you want to establish. It's important to make sure that all of the coaches that you hire, the players that you recruit, and the players that are currently on the team, it's important to make sure they understand, okay, here's the plan. I have a plan. We're going to work the plan. We're going to attack it every day. And if everyone buys into what we're doing and how we're going to go about doing it, then we'll have success.
Right. What I learned from playing for Coach Saban, watching your career, watching a lot of coaches, and now I work with athletic directors, seeing what they do in terms of leadership. My philosophy is that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of, right? And that includes, when you talk about student athletes, you come in and you assess where they are in terms of physical, in terms of mental. You assess where the culture of the program is and all those things. So the first year I would imagine is creating that environment, creating that culture. So tell me about your thoughts on creating the culture as a new head coach.
Yeah, culture is everything to me. And that was priority number one, was to shift the culture in Boulder back to a winning environment. And I really believe the two main factors in having success are environment and expectations. And so, and that's culture. And so when you go in the first year, the first season, it's not just the players. It's the coaches, all of the support staff, the weight room, the trainers, everyone that's in equipment, everyone that's involved in the program. It's all about establishing a winning culture. How do we operate day to day? It's not just slogans and words on the wall. It's how we live our lives, on the field, off the field, players and coaches, how we coach our players day in and day out, whether it's in their minds, capturing their minds, or, appealing to their core and their heart, or just the daily grind of, weight room and strength and conditioning and, practice tempo and regiment. all those things. It's really a day-to-day process of hammering away at things that are right, things that work, and really cementing the culture.
Right. In my analysis, I've always heard Coach Saban say, "You tell the expectations, and then people decide they want to do it." Right.
Yeah.
I've kind of expanded on that. Right.
Yeah. Sure.
If you create the expectations and then you explain how those expectations will be evaluated, people will do one of four things. Right. They'll do their job. Bill Belichick. Yeah. They'll excel at the job. They may choose not to do the job, or they may decide that they basically don't have the ability to do the job. So when you talk about expectations, defining it for everybody in your organization, I imagine when you interviewed staff, when you talk to players in recruiting, when you got players on your team now, expectations is probably one of the most important things because you've been around some of those.
Yeah, you have to set the expectation like right off the bat, and you have to set a very high bar. And I never hesitate to tell the coaches or the players or anyone that's involved or is listening that our goal is to win a championship. Our goal is to win a championship, and our goal is to be in the championship conversation every single year, and that's consistency and performance. And this is how, we'll be evaluated, whether it's wins and losses or how we conduct ourselves, academic progress, all those things. I mean, there's an evaluation, and you're going to be evaluated every day, and you have to prove yourself every day. And you're exactly right. That type of environment and expectation is not for everyone. I'll tell the players, I say, it's okay if this is not for you. Just let me know. And, we'll find a situation that may be better suited for you. But the expectation here and how we're going to go about getting there, those things are non-negotiable.
Now, when you talk about creating an environment, you also have to talk about maintaining that environment, right? And developing the program. And so first year is creating. You might go into the second year still in the process of transitioning from creating the environment to maintaining the environment. But tell me about your process of developing and maintaining a successful environment now that you're going into year two.
It's really about, development, players and coaches. You're going to make probably the most improvement from year one to year two. So everyone in our organization now understands what the expectations are, the method of operation, how we're going to go about our business, and the foundation of our culture has been laid. So really it's about, we have 2 recruiting classes under our belt. How do we develop those players that we've recruited?
Right.
They're our guys. Okay. How do we get them better day in and day out, on and off the field? How do we get better as coaches? How do we develop our scheme? Our offensive scheme, defensive scheme, special teams. How do we develop our scheme so it best suits our players and the guys that we've recruited? And it's going to be most effective versus the teams that we have to beat that are on our schedule. So whether it's strength and conditioning development, X's and O's scheme evaluation, academic progress, it's all about building on the foundation that we have laid and developing our players 360 degrees in every area so they can reach their full potential.
Right. Well, one of the things you taught me when you were a graduate assistant at Michigan State was, I told you who I was hanging out with, right? And you were like, those are good guys to hang out with because of, who you hang out with is who you're affiliated with, and how they act is probably going to be how you act or how people are going to perceive you act too. So that was very important. I imagine that's one of the things you teach some of the players you're around too.
Yes. You can tell a lot about a person by the company that they keep.
Right, exactly.
And it's very important if you're going to develop, as a young man, you're going to develop as a football player, you're going to develop as a coach. It's very important that you surround yourself with good people that have, congruent values and are aligned in terms of goals with what you want to do, and that's really and that becomes part of your environment, And so if you surround yourself with good people, like-minded individuals that are very positive and are about being successful, on and off the field, personally, professionally, that gives you a better chance to reach your full potential.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple questions here about you specifically. We get into. You play football, you learn about communicating with your teammates or on the field when things are happening. when you're young in your career, you got to communicate with the guys you're coaching or with the staff you work for. But as you progress to now a head coach, communication is of the utmost importance to the people that you work for and with, and also to the person you report to. Tell me about learning that aspect of the job as you're reporting to the athletic director, and how that has evolved in terms of successful communication with the athletics director.
Yeah, I believe in over communicating and semantic responsibility. I'm responsible for what the words that come out of my mouth.
Exactly.
And I understand as a head coach that my words mean a lot, and mean more than maybe as a position coach or a coordinator. And so everyone wants to know what Mel thinks.
It's important, yeah.
And so in communicating with the athletics director, I think it's important for me first and foremost to be a good listener. Rick has a tremendous amount of experience. We have the same goals, but he comes from a different perspective. He's on the business side of it. And I'm on the coaching side. So first I have to be a great listener, and then second, I have to be clear in my message to him. So there's no confusion. Clear about the direction of the program, things that I need more of, the type of support that I need, things that I'm happy with, things that I'm not happy with, and communicate clearly, areas of the program where I feel that Rick can help me the most. And so just over communicating, never taking anything for granted, and in my mind, when in doubt, communicate.
Yeah, right, exactly. You mentioned one thing there that I want to ask this final question here about. You're talking about everybody wants to know what Mel thinks, right? And what I found about quality leadership is they spend the time by themselves thinking about the day, the year, the month, the game, the introspective time where you can actually evaluate yourself. Tell me about how you've done that throughout the year, because when you're the boss, you're constantly serving those you work for and with, but there has to be a time when you're doing your own self-evaluation. Tell me about how you've done that.
Yeah, I've learned over the years to build margin into my daily schedule. It's really easy to book every minute of the day, every day, because there's always work that needs to be done, always a meeting that you have to have, or some type of interaction. But I make sure that I build margin in my day, so that I have an opportunity to think, to reflect, to plan, to strategize for whatever it is. And when things come up that are not scheduled, I can address them and I can handle them in a manner where I'm not panicked, I'm not rushed, and I can make good decisions. So, I think there's a tendency to feel like let's get as much done every minute of the day as we can, schedule meetings and whatever, schedule those things. But it's very important to leave margin in your day, because like you said, you have to have quiet time, with yourself, so you can make sure that you're setting the proper vision, that you're on task, that you're working towards the goals, and that's a very important aspect of what I do.
Right. Well, Mel, it sounds like you've prepared yourself to get into a position like this. Of course, there will be challenges, there will be celebrations, and you do the things necessary to try to continue to maintain that success. And I am happy to see you there, right? Seeing it progress from when I was a walk-on and you were a TA and progress through your career.
That was back in the day.
Back in the day, baby. But I really appreciate you joining me here on the One Question podcast.
No, thanks for having me, and let's do it again soon.
Yes, sir. That was Coach Mel Tucker. He is the head football coach at University of Colorado. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.